Welcome to video 29. So this video is all about subprograms, the background and theory. Purpose of the video then is to understand the background and theory of the use of subprograms and key terminology. There's no coding in this particular video, and as a related aside, you are very much encouraged to both design and code the solution to your practical programming project using subprograms, as they do demonstrate your understanding of programming at a more advanced level. So as a brief reminder, guys, the Python Monster Resource folder on Schoology now contains 2 catalog PDFs. The playlist and booklets PDF represents all of the videos organized as playlists and suggests any useful Python booklet or booklets to accompany the topic of a particular playlist. And the other PDF catalogs the videos in more detail and in sequence order. So what is a subprogram? Well, a subprogram, we can say, is a separate block of code that has its own specific task to fulfill. The main program calls the subprogram, and after the subprogram is finished doing whatever it's doing, control passes back to the main program and it continues from where it left off. So in terms of benefits, subprograms provide some real tangible benefits for programmers. Subprograms can be annexed and tested separately from the main code using dedicated testing tools and testing data if need be. Subprograms can be placed in libraries and shared with other programmers, so they don't have to spend time writing code that's already been developed. So Python libraries are great examples of these, and of course we've been using some of them a lot, such as the random number generator subprogram called randint, and subprograms available to us in the math library as just a couple of examples. Now we can also use subprograms to hide the functionality and internal data from users. So for example, software developers may provide both users and other software developers outside their company with DLL files and an API or application programmer's interface, and these allow people to pass data to the subprogram in the file and for the file to perform a specific task, but the users don't see how the code in the subprogram does this because the code is proprietary, belongs to the developers and is kept secure. So here's the main terminology that you need to know for your GCSE. The syntax of an example subprogram is shown on the slide. Pause the slide, guys, if you want to spend some time reading some of the descriptions there. The subprogram has a name, of course, and that's usually an action, followed by brackets, and any data that needs to be passed to the subroutine is placed in those brackets. We have a special name for those values, and they're called parameters. So we refer to the parameters of a subprogram as being the values that you see in the brackets. So it's sort of becoming a bit of a custom now in my videos to have a slide where I mention at some point or other how Python does things differently. Well, this one is more about naming conventions rather than syntax, you will be pleased to know. Now for your GCSE, you need to remember the difference between a function and a procedure. A function returns data to the main part of the program that calls it, but a procedure does not return data. However, Python documentation and Python programmers do not use the name procedure. So everything for them is basically a function. A subroutine is another name for a function, and a Python programmer would say that a function either does or does not return a value, but there's no distinction made between or separate use of a word called procedure. Okay. For your GCSE, however, you need to remember those 2 traditional types. A subprogram can either be a procedure or a function. The difference between the two is that a function returns a value to the main program, but a procedure does not. So in addition, guys, there's 2 other areas of theory and background that I need to cover off with you. Okay, and that relates to scope and the use and distinction of global and local variables. but I think I'm going to cover that in video 30 because I think it would be useful for us to do some practical demos before we look at this particular requirement on your course. So I will see you in the next video, video 30.